Good morning, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Happy Thursday. I hope you are thirsty for some pro wrestling punditry. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I am every Thursday by our very good friend Paul Pratt, a.k.a. Pollo Del Mar. Paul, it is wonderful to virtually be connecting with you here right now.
Yes. I mean, it was great to actually see you live and in person for the very first time on Sunday at Effie's Big Gay Brunch in Chicago. So it was so nice. It was so nice.
Dude, before we get into everything else, if you haven't watched it yet, Effie's Big Gay Brunch from Chicago is available for replay right now over on fight.tv. So you haven't missed it. There's still a chance to watch it. I cannot begin to describe how positive of an environment that show really was. For you got, I think, pop of the night. And I mean, there was a lot going on that show, but you brought the absolute house down, Paul, with Pollo's promo there about how wrestling needs to, we want to see some booking catered towards the LGBTQ community, right?
Right. I think that what it's important to understand is like the reason that I think is it's gotten like 15,000 views right now on social media or something like that. It's crazy. It's going it's been very popular. And I think that what it speaks to is not just the LGBTQ community, but I think that the message behind that is that representation matters. Like, so whomever is watching this now, they invariably want to see people who share their life experience that they can relate to, that feel authentically coming from that place of their own experience, right? I think that wrestling is for everybody. And if we don't recognize that and promote and program for everyone, people are going to start to fall off. And that's what we've seen in recent years, like the fall off in people who are engaging in our products. And I think that that's super important.
Yeah. Was this like something you thought about beforehand that you wanted to say, or were you just kind of out there and felt the moment and thought this is the time to just kind of let loose a little bit with some stuff that's been on my mind for a while?
That was, I actually don't script anything. Like I may get bullet points or something. That was a situation that was just, if you recall correctly, we were talking about the fact that that event was raising money for LGBTQ youth services. We donated to LGBTQ youth, a nonprofit organization. And I was talking about that, and it just sort of like went from one thing to the other. It's like, look, you need to support organizations and companies that support the people that are important to you. And in my case, that happens to be LGBTQ youth. And it then just kind of like snowballed into the fact that it blows my mind that I'm actually a focal point in a show like that, because shows like that, number one, did not exist when I was a kid. Number two, wrestling like that did not exist. And number three, the representation that we saw on that show, which is people across a spectrum of genders, sexualities, races, ethnicities, and backgrounds all coming together to put on this amazing show. And representation was really strong at the forefront of my mind, and it just came out on the spot. So I'm glad it resonated with people.
Well, and it wasn't just representation in the ring. Go to a lot of wrestling shows. This was the by far biggest melting pot, most diverse group of people I may have ever seen at a wrestling show. I mean, all kinds of people of color, tons and tons of women. I think maybe a 1-to-1 ratio, women to men at this show. I think the biggest compliment of the night came from my girlfriend Liz, who was there and had a wonderful time. It was in kind of it was in a space that was kind of hot, right?
Weltering, not kind of. Like I was women glisten. I was like sweating like a horse right after the Kentucky Derby.
Okay, so it was hot. But like Liz leans over, she goes, it's really hot in here. You'd think it smelled terrible, but it really doesn't. And that's such a compliment. It's such a compliment to the cleanliness of the fans that attend a Big Gay Brunch. I thought that was a wonderful observation she had.
One of the things I'm going to say, like, I think that kind of encapsulates the Big Gay Brunch thing is like when those started, and I'm not speaking firsthand because I was not at Big Gay Brunch 1. I've been at 2 and 3, and hopefully as they grow, I'll continue to be growing with it. But the idea behind it was like, can this even exist? Can this be profitable? And they lumped it in with these fantastic weekends of GCW events so that there would be a built-in fan base. Hopefully that some of that would come over in case nobody showed up for that show, right?
Right.
And now you're seeing people who travel for the GCW weekend specifically because they want to be there for Big Gay Brunch. And you saw like a lot of carryover from the night before at War Games. A lot of those people were back in the morning, and you could tell the difference between the GCW fan and the BGB fan, but everybody came together. It was so respectful, and I love that too. Like, one of the things that I think you and I experience here is like, we can dislike things, or they may not speak to us, but we don't have to be disrespectful in the way we talk about that. And we don't have to be disrespectful in the way we interact with that. And I go back to things that I said from the very first episode with you, like Orange Cassidy's not my cup of tea, but obviously he is somebody else's cup of tea. And so who am I to yuck somebody else's yum, right? And This was an experience where we all just got to come together, and I felt really strongly there was just something for everyone on that show. High flying, death match, you name it, flamboyance, we had it all.
Yeah. Well, again, it's available on fight.tv. Go check out the replay if you haven't already. And yes, the show is gaining tons of momentum. I hope next Pride Month, BGB is booked every single weekend all over the country. I think it's a layup there. You would all make tons and tons of money. I think you know that. You made money.
I wanted to tell you, because on the heels of you asking about that, I was in a Twitter space with Brett Lauderdale, who is, of course, the mastermind behind GCW. And he said openly, like in that conversation without even being prompted, that his hope is actually that BGB, with the popularity of Big Gay Brunch, it becomes a touring entity of its own, like that it could go separate from. And I don't think that they're looking at Pride months, because Pride months are really busy. And it always, as somebody within the community, when there's a Pride show, it always feels like a money grab, right? Like, let's capitalize, and that's not what this is.
That's why I said you'd clean up. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. But it feels like a money grab, and this doesn't have to be that. This is a product that people obviously want. That 700 paid admissions and thousands of people watching it on Fight TV. So if you're one of those people, whether you're in our community or not, just the fact that you show up and support and love us and appreciate what we do, we love and appreciate you. So thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Savage capitalist Nick Hausman seeping out there. Sorry, right? It's not about dollars making sense. Sometimes it makes sense and you get dollars. It goes the other way. All right. Wonderful talk here about Big Gay Brunch. We have a lot of news to get to here today. We have an awesome bit of audio for you as well. But before we get to any of that, we have two back-to-back well wishes we want to send. The first one goes out to WWE Executive VP of Global Talent Strategy and Development, Paul Triple H Levesque, who underwent heart surgery last week. Now, WWE announced that Triple H underwent a successful procedure at Yale New Haven Hospital at New Haven, Connecticut last week. It was noted that the operation was needed after a cardiac event, which was caused by a genetic heart issue. Triple H is expected to make a full recovery, according to WWE's statement. I'll be honest, there was like a second there where I got the headline. I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was like, oh my God, this sounds really bad. I'm glad that he's doing really well. It's very sad to hear that he's dealing with this at the moment, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, in the back of my head, I was just like, man, he had a full heart attack after hearing what Vince's plans were for NXT.
Dude, I don't want to pass the aspersion. I'll say this.
Vince is like, this is what we're doing. He's all, oh, Elizabeth, it's the big one. Like Fred Sanford back in the 70s.
Okay, I will say my first thought was, this is a guy who's been under a lot of stress, right?
Yeah.
And so it kind of puts everything in perspective to me. When we sit here and, I'm pretty candid and loose about how I think the relationship is with Vince and Hunter, right? But when you hear about something like this, it kind of gives you pause and you're like, whoa, wait, what's people getting put in gladiator gear and struggling with that is one thing, but when the struggle becomes something physical, it becomes something completely else. So we don't know that the two things are inherently related. Obviously, I think it's something that came to a lot of wrestling fans' minds. But regardless, on the other side of this, I hope he, like they say here, full recovery. Obviously, has done a lot for pro wrestling business, and in particular for the indies. There's no way the whole indie boom into WWE would have happened had Triple H not had the power he had in WWE over the past few years.
Yeah, and I automatically go, I mean, hello, I'm a drag queen, so like I automatically go to that place of like humor or whatever. But the reality is that we know that there is a direct correlation between things like, stress and physical well-being. So I think that whether or not there's any kind of contentious relationship between Vince and his son-in-law, Paul has taken a lot of responsibility on his shoulders and has for a number of years. So it's only, it stands to reason that those things all factor in. One of the things that I thought was very respectable about this is the fact that this happened some time ago and it stayed entirely secret within the WWE. We know that there's constant things that are leaked out or this or that. So the fact that people either took this seriously enough or the immediate family sort of rallied around and kept it private, I thought spoke very well of the fact that people's health concerns, which should not be made public until those individuals are ready, take a precedent here.
Yeah. So definitely sending our best to Triple H. Also want to send our best to WWE Cruiserweight Champion Kushida, who revealed via an Instagram video yesterday that he recently tested positive for COVID-19. He noted that he tested positive 3 weeks ago, and his family also tested positive. Kushida said he and his wife were fully vaccinated, but they still caught the virus. He added that everyone is okay now, but they were dealing with fatigue, loss of smell and taste, and other symptoms. The family is currently recovering and feeling much better now, but Kushida did not say when he's going to be back in action, but he said he will see everyone in the ring soon. So, great. I'm glad they're fully recovered. A reminder that we are very much not out of this. And just kind of a news item for everybody to keep an eye on today. President Joe Biden is going to be making an announcement at 5 p.m. Eastern. So wherever you're at, 5 p.m. Eastern, 6-pronged strategy for the United States to tackle the COVID pandemic. A couple things I've heard, maybe, obviously there's a vaccine passport, an app, right, where you can pull up and show a bar or whatever. I'm vaccinated. I don't really have an issue with that. The one that could really throw a wrench in a lot of things for people is I've heard they might require vaccines for domestic travel. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
So I was just going to say that one of the things, I know that this is has become a polarizing political issue, and I don't want that to overwhelm our conversation here. But one of the things that, the people who detract from the idea of vaccinations is well, Kushida was fully vaccinated, but he got COVID. And the reminder here is that, yes, it's because of the fact that people are not getting fully vaccinated. Viruses are a living creature, right? So they can mutate. So it will change, and he can get a different variation of the very thing he was vaccinated against because it's still growing and changing. If we were to kind of across the board go to that place where we would all be immunized against this, then the possibility of that would begin to decrease.
Yeah, significantly. And the reason the domestic travel thing is coming up is just because a lot of people, you can reward those who got the vaccine, but at a certain point, if things are going out of control, you have to figure out a way to, I hate to say punish, but make life more difficult for those who choose not to become vaccinated. And that's where we're at right now. It's where they got about 6-8 months ago in a lot of countries over in Europe and overseas. And we're about to, I think today, just keep an eye on it, because whatever Biden announces, I have a feeling one way or another is going to affect all of us, including the world of professional wrestling. And again, I don't even know how this could, indoor events, masks. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen today with this. I know
I've just never understood the argument against the idea of vaccination, because people are like, well, I don't want to be vaccinated. And I was like, if you ever went to elementary school, you were required to be vaccinated.
Right.
So if you are arguing that you should not be vaccinated, perhaps that indicates you didn't go to elementary school. But the fact of the matter here is that it's something that's not uncommon. It's required in many capacities. It's the only way that we got rid of polio. So it's not there. There is a standard that has been set by this in the past, and I hope that we can move past it. Just because the politics of things aside, I think the one thing that everybody agrees on, we would love this crap to be done. We would like to go back to a normal life. I would like to not have to wear that mask for my own protection or your protection. I think that everybody would agree on that.
Yeah, there was 6 weeks there where we all got to pretend like everything was great. We can do it, people, right? We maybe pulled the plug a little early, but we can still fix this, everybody. We all have to row the boat in the same direction. All right. So anyway, sending our best to Triple H, Kushida. Later on here in the show, if you're listening to us in audio form, you're going to hear the full audio from Bryan Danielson's AEW All Out Media Scrum. A lot of stuff brought up there. This is where I ask him about Is there any interest in Bree to coming to AEW? You may have already read about it, but you'll hear about it here later. Of course, the full media scrum is up already on our YouTube channel for Wrestling Inc. And in the mailbag later, we're going to talk about something. I don't think we could have picked a better mailbag today. I know you're really passionate about it. I saw your tweet. Yes, you can interview Kevin. Let's try to get it done, so we could do it early next week, so it'll be timely. But yeah, that sounds great. Who is this?
This is Jasper. This is my heel dog. I've got a heel and a baby face. This is the heel, but they're very needy.
Oh, I may go grab Willow.
Yeah. So who's the baddest dog? Whose yard is it? Okay, go.
Jasper, I acknowledge you, Jasper. I acknowledge you.
He's like, I'm head of the bowl, the food bowl.
Okay, hey, and look, Dave in here, Jasper with the run-in. You can make a run-in too. The comment section is open wherever you're at. We've done a lot of small talk and some sadder stories here up top, but let's get to it here. The fun stuff, the news you can use, the news that will leave a bruise. We're going to start here today on our journey with a report from Fightful. So apparently there was significant internal heat in relation to people, quote, falling asleep at the wheel with details and planning on NXT contracts. Word is that this wasn't as much of an issue with the main roster as several wrestlers had talked directly with Vince McMahon about their contracts. WWE renegotiated several contracts in 2019 ahead of the COVID-19 pandemic to adjust them for higher guarantees. There's no word yet on specific terms, but many of the wrestlers altered their deals. It was noted that there was confusion about some contracts that fell in NXT and the transition between NXT and the main roster. After Malachi Black, a.k.a. Aleister Black, was released by the company earlier this summer, he had just a 30-day non-compete clause instead of that 90-day. WWE reviewed many of the talent contracts then to make sure nothing else caught them by surprise. It appears this is where they got caught off guard by Adam Cole and Pete Dunne deals expiring soon. Yeah, of course there was heat. Like,
somebody lost a job. There wasn't heat. Somebody lost a job, or several people lost jobs.
This is a multi-billion-dollar company, Paul. How are you not having at least like a team of people doing nothing but monitoring contracts and when they expire? That's wild to me.
I mean, part of my thoughts on this is that we've just recently seen them go through all of those sort of consolidations of entire departments, people losing, like entire departments being removed, and then presumably new people getting those job responsibilities, as that's how it happens in corporate America. We're going to fire 5 people. You get to stay, but you get to do the job of 6 people now. So I'm not surprised that something like that happened. I mean, I guess like I am surprised, but at the same time, meaning it's not impossible to imagine for me. Like things fall through the cracks, and if people whose job exclusively was to monitor those things got let go, then who's doing that?
So I want to know more about this line about the 2019 renegotiations ahead of the pandemic to adjust for higher guarantees. Was this like, we know you're going to be working in a more dangerous environment, therefore, out of goodwill, legally, we feel the need to renegotiate or give you the opportunity, like you can leave right now if you'd like. If not, you can stick around. We'll renegotiate your contract. I'm a little confused, kind of exactly what happened there, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know if when they talk about that, if they're referencing the fact that they knew about the pandemic coming. It's just meaning that there was probably a wave of people who did contract renegotiations, and it just happened to be before the pandemic. Thusly, those people are locked in, but anybody who would have been doing their contract renegotiations or whatever during that 2020 period of the pandemic, those were probably put on serious hold.
I got it. Yeah, this is when AEW was starting to take off, and WWE gave some more people some more money to not jump ship and give them another Moxley or Chris Jericho to play with. That's right.
Exactly. Until they turned around and decided that we'll give you all the Moxleys and all the Jerichos and all the up and coming talent on our roster.
This is a fascinating item here from the Observer. Adam Cole's main roster plans involved him being a heel manager for Keith Lee. Now, the idea was for Lee to turn heel with Cole as his manager. It was noted that Cole would probably have been given I'm sorry, I have to stop for a second. it was noted that Cole would probably have to be given a different name so that there weren't two Coles, with Michael Cole also being on the main roster. The idea came from either Vince or Bruce Pritchard. He had heard from, this is Meltzer, he had heard from one source that it was McMahon's idea, while another said it was Pritchard. It was noted that he did not hear that it came from the creative team. What the?
Of course it didn't come from a creative team.
No.
I can't say that because, they come up with all kinds of crap, but.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think Dewey Foley's walking into Vince's office. This is like, hey, you know what we should do with Adam Cole? Let's make him a manager, right? They tried to do this with Leo Rush, right? And Bobby Lashley to some success. Obviously, I think MVP is probably a better fit for Lashley for a lot of reasons. But this is lunacy. This, like, if you're trying to piss somebody off and get them to leave, this is what you give them, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, how insulting is it to say to someone, you could go anywhere in the world, and despite what our opinion of your size, your build, your age, your whatever, they will book you as a world champion.
Right.
But here, we have an opportunity for you. You can be a manager. Now, as somebody who's a manager and grew up wanting to do that, that's wonderful. But as somebody who grew up presumably wanting to be the next Ric Flair or the next Shawn Michaels or the next whatever, that is not okay, especially when you have the absolute talent to back it up and you've carried your third brand for multiple years. Wow, what a slight and what a narrow perspective of what fans want.
Yeah, really, really narrow. And yeah, when you listen to Adam Cole, and we ran the audio from his scrum yesterday on the show, it's also on YouTube. But when you sit there and you listen to him talk about why he's at AEW, he didn't really go out of his way to take any pot shots at WWE. I did ask him about the Vince meeting. I'm wishing to mention this in the response. But like you hear the passion in his voice, the way he talks about Tony Khan's passion for wrestling, and I really wanted to be around that and be a pro wrestler. The guy obviously wants to wrestle. I mean, I wonder if they were trying to insult him to make him leave. Like, if you're sitting in a room and it's just Vince and Bruce and Hunter's not there, and they really like this is like a really kind of insulting offer, in my opinion, considering what you know about the guy and where his priorities lie.
Yeah, but I mean, why would you want to insult him like that? And the other thing I want to mention is, like, for all the shit that he's received and storylines built around his size and all of this stuff, he walked into that AEW ring last night with the elite right there. And with the exception of Doc Gallows, he looked perfectly well suited to be in there in terms of size and stature. It did not look out of place. And I've never one time watched Adam Cole on television or in a wrestling ring and thought to myself, man, this guy's just tiny. Now, Leo Rush, yeah, like, that guy is much smaller. You're talking about 140 pounds, maybe something to that effect. And there's still a place for people that size in the world of professional wrestling if you tell their stories right, considering one of their main characters on Friday SmackDown is Rey Mysterio, who is arguably the smallest main event wrestler in history. But the fact that they could not see past that, or it felt like a vendetta towards the end. Like, they literally would not open their minds to what his possibilities and capabilities are.
Yeah, I love this comment here from Antonio Garcia. Dunn and Cole just took Moxley's advice by not bringing up their contract expirations themselves. Yeah, and again, it plays more into the distrust of the people that work there towards the company. And the more I talk about how the fans and the wrestlers are advocates of WWE or AEW, that is why AEW is growing. But the fans and the wrestlers are advocates of AEW. WWE has some insano fan advocates, no doubt about it. But the amount of people in the company advocating for the company, telling people this is a great company, it's a very small pool of people that are doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, we will see things that pop up, obviously, where WWE will do something great for its team members, its employees or its independent contractors. We saw that recently with Mustafa Ali, where Hunter told him to like just move home, be a dad, and all of these things. And we've seen small stories like that, but that does not appear to be the culture overall. And whether it is or isn't the culture there, perception is 99% of reality. And I think that the general populace, if you ask them, the wrestling community, even those who are avid WWE fans, how do you think the company treats its employees? They probably don't think about that. They just think about the fact that they love WWE. And I think that once you get past that, you have to go and see what is the corporate culture and should people want to work there.
Yeah, 100%. What a weird time. I'm as fascinated as anybody to see what we get on Tuesday night with this new NXT. It's just going to be, it'll be interesting. And yeah, the Michael Cole stuff, like, like what's going on? I mean, like, again, like, what an insult. Like, is Vince like he just doesn't watch NXT? And, doesn't realize that this multi-time NXT champion has had the same last name as Michael Cole. Like, he doesn't even acknowledge NXT as part of WWE. It's just weird, man. Just really bizarre. Really bizarre.
It's like, look, we know that you presumably will be a world champion anywhere you go if you leave here. But we've got this announcer guy. Yeah, and you have the same last name. So we think that we're going to make... You're Harvey Whippleman Jr. We like it.
Yes. The son of Harvey Whippleman. That makes tons of it. Comes out with the suspenders, got the little flop hat on.
It's perfectly timed. It's like it's the illegitimate child of Bertha Faye and Harvey Whippleman from that ill-begotten romance from many years ago.
I love Dave in here. It's just Adam, baby, right? Sure. You're just Adam. You're Adam. Just Adam. I could see it. Well, another name that looks to be out the door for WWE here sooner than later, Kevin Owens. So the Young Bucks updated their Twitter bio on Tuesday, changing their location to there in reference to Kevin Owens' Mount Rushmore location update that he made earlier in the day. Of course, Mount Rushmore was the name of the stable the Bucks and Cole had with Kevin Steen when they were in ROH together. Now, John Alba said there is said to be very much an internal belief within WWE that Owens is leaving the company when his contract expires. And on top of that, WWE legend The Rock believes that Owens and Adam Cole are two of the best in the business. He praised both of them on Twitter late on Wednesday. Maybe Rock reads Wrestling Inc. Hi, Rock. Hi, Dwayne. Come on sometime if you want. Anyway, Owens is maybe out the door here too.
First of all, I don't think that as much as we love that it came from The Rock, I don't think that you have to be, a Hall of Fame wrestling talent to acknowledge that Cole and Kevin Owens have been consistently two of the best in WWE for the last many, many years. Kevin Owens, is that person that is so over with the fans, can tell any story. They can move him up and down the card with ease, where he can either be the opening match to make sure you start off with something that's hot, or he can be moved and heated up very quickly and become a major and viable world title contender. This is somebody who I feel like has never gotten his due necessarily in WWE. And I think that we universally can agree that he's one of the most beloved people.
Hey, whoa, is your phone not muted? We're getting huge dings here right now.
I'm like, I try to mute this thing.
It's not muted. It's blowing out my eardrums. I didn't mean to cut you off twice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you wanna wrap up that thought? Sorry, I literally
no. I mean that was it. I think that he's universally one of the most popular characters, if you will, on WWE programming. And my concern here is that once all of these people make that jump over to AEW, how will they be used any differently once that top tier is overflowing with people? But I think that certainly he'll be shown in a different light there.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a ticket to ride over at AEW right now, you take the ticket to ride, right? I do. I mean, and again, like, I don't know that I want to harp on it so much because everybody's having so much fun right now, but it is like, it's a lot of like white guys, right? Like, if I'm waiting for that like big person of color or that next LGBT star, or like they got Ruby Soho, which is awesome. but like the stream of top name talents they're bringing in all kind of fit like a kind of similar mold. I don't know if is that something worth observing or not to you.
I mean, like they're bringing in all their buddies, so I think that speaks to who their buddies are.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a layer that goes beyond that. That's an implicit, like, who are your friends? You all you hang out with the same people over and over, like duplicates. Okay, sure, bring them in.
Okay, it's like a ska band. So we have here Iron Meds. I'm fine with KO leaving. Always thought it was dumb. They try to make him the next Stone Cold. I mean, as good as KO is and has been, it does feel like there's another gear that is there that they just don't let him go to, right? Feels a little sad. Yeah.
And I can't disagree with the fact that I've never necessarily loved the explicit way that they've kind of drawn that parallel to Stone Cold either.
Yeah. We also have here from Sei Ogunubi. I hope I got your name right. Not just Kevin Owens. I think Finn Balor is as good as gone. I don't know what Balor's contract looks like, but man, yeah, I mean, join the line. I mean, he certainly fits the mold and like has the friendship there, and you know, is not somebody since he won the Universal title and then got injured that WWE has really put a whole heck of a lot of faith in, you know?
Look, one way or another, this is going to turn out to be incredibly good for, in my opinion, fans of WWE who have been begging for new talents to begin to get like top positions, because before very long, they are going to have no top talent, or except the very, very top and the very, very bottom. Like the whole mid card and upper mid card is slowly but surely like exiting. So before long, you know, people like Cesaro, who do not seem to be willing or interested in making that move, could begin to take on greater emphasis in the company because that's who they've got left.
It's going to come down to a matter of taste, right? You know, there as great and as hot as the AEW product is, a lot of very talented people are going there. There are other people, I'm sure, that look at AEW's product just be like, you know, there's violence, there's cursing. This is not, you know, kind of what I want to attach myself to. And Vince is going to, if they're of quality, pay them a lot of money to kind of stick around and do what Vince wants them to do. And you're just going to start to see very different rosters, right? The culture of the WWE roster is about to change, I think, dramatically over the next year. It's going to be a sifting out process. And by the end of it, you're going to have a lot of people that are like WWE loyalists. I don't think you're going to hear about a lot of, you know, I mean, there are going to people that are going to be unhappy with their spots for sure, but it's not like those are the people that are going to be looked at as big names that can jump. I think AEW is in the process of squeezing out the water from that sponge right now. And then in a year, we're going to get, you know, what's left of the sponge. So.
Yeah, I think, and I also am just, I think that right now, you know, if we continually draw parallels back to the old WCW days, and people were jumping ship left and right, and then they realized that there was a glut of talent now in the other company, and people were getting no opportunities there. Like they were getting forgotten as soon as they showed up. They were hot for a week, and then that shine was automatically gone because they were so busy bringing in other people, and people stopped wanting to come over. They became disenchanted. And I think that we're going to see that as well. And I think we're also probably reach a point of fatigue for audiences where it's not that interesting anymore, because we get all of these incredible big names. And then what? Then what happens?
Well, we were talking about the lack of like big, you know, diversity when it comes to these new hires here. Brian Bills 14 saying, is Hobbs potentially going to get a rub from working with CM Punk? They had a confrontation last night on Dynamite. Yeah, he'll be works, but like, what happens after the Punk match, right? I think is the question you need to ask yourself. There's always going to be another thing for the Bucks. There's going to be always like 4 things for Cody. There's you know, going to be something else for a lot of people, but there's a lot of talent where it's like maybe you'll get a chance to work with one of those people where they have something for the next thing. But what happens to you? What happens to a Joey Janela or a Sonny Kiss? You know, or some of these members of the Dark Order, you know, that we're seeing right now.
Right. And the thing is, I think that, you know, Tony Khan has hinted at the prospect of adding more championships to AEW with the size of their roster. I think that's a necessity. I think, you know, he loves this sort of trios idea of having a trios championship. I'm not always the biggest fan of that, but I think that at least that's some opportunity for people to be slotted into places as long as they book in ways that make sense, which was not the way the NWA ever treated their 6-man titles. I hated that. But, these are opportunities to give people championships. And I still advocate for the idea of, an elevation or a dark or a rampage related title that's sort of like very specific to those things.
I'm kind of surprised we don't have a dark champion yet.
It just would make sense to me.
Yeah, the title can only be defended on dark or dark elevation, right? You have kind of like an internet championship kind of deal, an inverse of the TNT title. It feels like something in Tony's wheelhouse too.
It does. And I think that it would, because I think the reason that they do not have that is because they always want to give the presentation that dark carries over stories from Dynamite or Rampage, and that these talents intermittently go back and forth. But that's not the reality. Yes, they will talk about these storylines that happen, but there's an entire roster of talent that is, I don't want to say relegated to dark, because I think it's still a great opportunity, or relegated to elevation, but though that is their home base right now until they get developed to a point where they get to be called up. So I think that giving something, even if it was like, it doesn't even have to be a championship. Why not like a long drawn out tournament that's like, that gives somebody from that show an opportunity to go to the main roster and vie for a title, which they'll immediately lose.
Okay. Okay, I can see that. I'm partial to I like the internet championship idea.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I've just always been. I just love the inverse of this. But I mean, it's Zack Ryder's thing, right? Like, do you have to work out? Like, does he have to trademark the internet champion? I don't know, right? But an internet championship makes sense to me.
Well, there's multiple. I mean, All Pro Wrestling here in the Bay Area has an internet title, and a variety of people have internet titles because it became the new thing instead of a TV title, because people are not watching wrestling on TV anymore. If you're a small company, you're watching it on the internet.
Sure. YouTube championship, BNR championship. BNR actually probably makes more sense. That's their partner. So food for thought. Also, Dave Langer saying AEW just signed Lee Moriarty. He'll be a huge star. Yeah, and I agree with that. I was ecstatic to see Lee Moriarty in the ring here when they were taping Dark in Rampage. I thought he was with MLW. Was he like a first-round draft pick for MLW?
I thought he was too. Again, this is a situation where, am I excited for Lee? Yes, I just saw him. I think I'm getting to see him this weekend here on a show at West Coast Pro Wrestling in South San Francisco. But I'm excited for anybody who gets to live that dream of being signed. But the reality that they face is that Lee Moriarty is the hottest thing coming off of the indies right now, going into a pond that's filled with the hottest things that just jumped over from WWE 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Back to the question about Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs get a rub off of CM Punk? Yeah, of course he will. But what will they do with that, and how will they present it? I think for 100% sure that they are going to let Powerhouse be strong. They're going to let him look strong, and he'll come out of that match with his loss and still look strong. But what will they do with it after?
And I know we're going to talk more about Dynamite, kind of some big things coming out of it. But I thought Dynamite last night did a fantastic job of focusing on younger talent and mixing in the big guys, and you starting to wonder where the rubber is going to meet the road. The highlight of that show for me was the Pillman MJF stuff. And that's not two guys who were in WWE. Those are two guys AEW took and is turning into homegrown stars. The fact that they were dead center of the show when your show should be peaking, and that's what they focused on, Paul. And again, there are a lot of talents right now that are waiting to get that spot. But you look at Daniel Garcia in 2.0, I already see the benefit of Rampage. Those guys have really been elevated, I feel, over there. I think that there is the potential there to get an elevate or come in and get a rub and not get lost in the shuffle. But it is definitely a wheat and chaff situation right now at the AEW where that's going on, So
I felt really good about in terms of the company, the way the company is showcasing like the mix of their homegrown with the mix of incoming talent. I think that is I'm going to give them major props for that. I think a big part of that is because Cole came in right into that mix with the Elite, so they're always going to be where they're at. So he just came in and kind of builds that out. Brian came in and is now sort of like pitted into that same scenario. So they're not in a situation where they're going to, in any way, shape, or form, harm other people below them, like lower on the spectrum, because of the fact that they are not in position to necessarily face those people at the moment. I will tell you that thing with MJF, putting Brian Pillman on a microphone against MJF is like sending somebody into war with a BB gun. It's not a good idea.
I thought Brian, he had a lot of things going for him there. He was in his hometown. His family was there. A lot of, and I agree with you, right? Like,
he had all of the window dressing and none of the like the mic skills to back it up. Zero.
I was knowing Brian. I thought that was actually one of Brian's better promos, but
that's not saying anything.
MJF overcompensated for Brian there by going in, and I'm sure, look, if people took offense to whatever, I guarantee you there's no way MJF is walking out there saying any of that to Brian's face in front of his family unless the whole Pillman clan was in on what MJF was going to say. And if not, like, what a dick thing to do, but I just don't believe that. MJF made Brian Pillman look like a more compelling white meat baby face, and that's what a good heel does.
Yes, he made that situation. It's obvious that they're trying to invest in Pillman because they gave him all the makings to make that right. His hometown, his family at ringside, the best mic worker in the company. So all of those things were set up. He should have been, if it were me, Pillman should have said less because I just could not stop focusing. He's not a compelling promo. So, I think that, like, do you disagree?
I thought that Brian in that moment did better than I expected. I really thought that the fans were there.
What is that saying? How
he didn't blow through the promo. He took his time. Was it a Dusty Rhodes, like, put your hand up to the screen promo? No, but it was for what it needed to be, which is a guy getting his first shot, presenting himself as a white meat babyface. I thought Brian did well, and I'm not trying to just blow smoke up his. I thought Brian did well in the spot, and people here in the comment section, you can jump in, tell us right or wrong if you thought Brian.
I will say this: I don't want it to sound like I'm like denigrating Brian Pillman Jr. What I'm saying is that my way of approaching things is like, what are people's strengths and what are their weaknesses, and how do we program to the strengths and overshadow the weaknesses? And Brian saying less in that would have been better. Like, I'm going to let my actions speak. I think that the company obviously is invested in him because they set this up. They set it up for success. And I think that no matter how people like me might have watched that and come out of it being like, oh, like this was a little cringy, I think he comes out of it much more compelling than he's ever been in the last 6 months on the show. So there is an interest there. I just think that I'm really grateful to MJF. MJF carried him, and I think that speaks to MJF as a professional and as a talent.
Daniel Price here. If I were Pillman, MJF would have been dead right there when bringing up Melanie. And also, I love the complex nature of Wardlow, right? Like, MJF denigrated the guy, and you would think Wardlow, again, the dinging.
I'm telling you, I've tried turning it off.
The dinging, Paul, the dinging.
I literally turned it off.
The dinging. But Wardlow's so complicated. MJF berates this guy to the point you think that he would just let Brian Pillman Jr. destroy him, but instead Wardlow, for whatever reason, maybe because of the contract he has with MJF or whatever it may be, pulling Brian Pillman off. I'm interested. I'm wondering are we officially on the road to a Wardlow turn on MJF? Is that what we're going to get at Arthur Ashe?
That one's pretty clear.
You think Arthur Ashe? You think Grand Slam? You think that's when they do it?
I don't know when they pull the trigger on that one, but I do know that I feel like we saw the complexity started to pop up there. There was that point in time where MJF had told him to go wait in the other corner, and he allowed Pillman to get the attack, and then went over and broke it up. It's like, I'm following your instructions. So, and I think that we've been teasing that for a long time. I think that they eventually are going to want to pull that trigger on Wardlow, because I think that he's somebody that, definitely has an upside with the company. And I think that they will probably want to pull that trigger on him as well, because, he's somebody I could see WWE wanting to court, if you will.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Wardlow, this from Aubrey James. Wardlow is going to be a big star babyface. Yeah, I think so too. I think when they pull the trigger on this. Well, we were talking about representation and new signings. That kind of transitions into this next story here. Earlier this week, a friend of the show, Forbes Alfred Kunawa, pointed out how there was a support Black wrestling sign in the front row during the tag team turmoil match on WWE Raw, which took place at the FTX Arena in Miami. Kunawa said he doesn't care how many incels get their Bray Wyatt signs confiscated as long as WWE doesn't confiscate such signs. But on Wednesday, Bray Wyatt actually took note of Kunawa's tweet and was evidently unhappy with the wording. Now, of course, WWE had security confiscate at least one fan sign relating to The Fiend at last month's SummerSlam. The fan in question was caught on camera making the sign during the kickoff show and was subsequently approached by security personnel. A correspondent inside Allegiant Stadium in Vegas noted that the fan tried to resist but was eventually forced to hand over the sign. The former champion will become a free agent on October 29th, 2 days before Halloween. How surreptitious. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know. There's a lot you can kind of take from this, but it's just weird, the big brother nature of WWE with their live events anymore. Looking over your shoulder, watching your phones, watching your signs, a little creepy.
Yeah, there's a lot of control there. I think that I think it speaks to the nature of the entire company, right? Because they want to control their stars' social media. They want to control their contributors' Twitch streaming, because you don't make extra money. You don't have extra exposure. You don't have a platform for your voice when it's unscripted. They like to control a lot of things.
Yeah. Also talking about control, PWInsider.com saying Vince McMahon was not present in Miami for Monday's Labor Day edition of Raw, but he did still help out with creative. He was involved giving feedback. Pritchard ran the show. The tag team turmoil match was originally going to main event, get lots of time, but it wound up, opening and closing the show. Somebody earlier noted in the comments, and there's too many for me to go back, but we talked earlier about, the cardiac event that Triple H had last week. I think it's within the realm of reason that maybe the reason Vince wasn't there wasn't because he was dejected from All Out, maybe spending time with his family after somebody close to him suffered an event there.
It seems appropriate. My son-in-law, who is an heir apparent to this entire franchise, just had a heart attack. So maybe taking a night off. I could still imagine him wearing headphones and at the hospital and barking at people, over on a headset there. But then again, maybe not, because I assume he was probably doing that to all the nurses and doctors who are caring for, sir, this isn't WWE. Calm down.
Yeah. So just a little update there on Vince. And lastly here, before we get to Bryan Danielson's AEW All Out Media Scrum, and then we're going to talk to PWI 500, let's touch on a couple things coming out of Dynamite. I'll just run through everything and you kind of tell me what you think. Punk cut a promo. He was interrupted by Taz. Looks like we're going to get Punk Team Taz. We talked about the Adam Cole promo with the Elite. Bryan Danielson came out. There was a little scuffle after he had a one-on-one confrontation with Omega. Jurassic Express and Christian looks like decidedly the backup for Bryan Danielson against the Elite. Moxley Suzuki. Moxley beat him with 2 paradigm shifts. Suzuki got busted open early. Emi Sakura said he needed 7 stitches. And lastly, Tully Blanchard cut a backstage promo on Sting that ended with, and then Sting, there's going to be a time when it's you and me one more time. With speculation, we could be getting to Tully Blanchard versus Sting match 2021 on national television. Anything in particular you want to talk about, grab from that grab bag there?
Yeah. So I think it's fantastic that, Team Taz, Punk is moving into that whole Team Taz thing. I think that that's going to be a great place for him. Obviously, in my mind, the end game of that is Punk versus Ricky Starks for the FTW title, right? That, how great could that be for Ricky Starks? Even if it, I would hope that it doesn't come out to a one and done for that. I think it could be a whole program of things. We're going to get to see him versus, Hobbs, which is always a good thing. And I think that it gives him a nice place in a program that's going to help to elevate multiple local, like localized, meaning AEW specific team members and performers. I think that's great. When I was watching and I was like, what in the hell is Tully Blanchard talking about here? I could not quite grasp it. When he was like, Sting, you're trying to ride on the success of somebody. I'm like, you've got literally 5 times as many people you're riding on. What's the difference between him being a legend and guiding somebody who's literally a carbon copy of him versus you being a legend and guiding a group of people who are a borderline carbon copy of your greatest success? What is the difference here? And I want to know who is what we really need? Sting versus Tully. We need that. We need it. Not exactly how I want to remember those two, but overall, I thought the show was really compelling. Ruby, that kind of promo between Ruby Soho and Britt Baker, stage was quite good. I had to chuckle when Adam Cole threatened Tony Schiavone. I tweeted I guess Adam's not the only one. I guess Adam also picked up on that touchy-feely mall Santa vibe from Tony. The overly interested, older guy interested in Britt, hanging out with her with his earring. That's always cracks me up. Tony Schiavone with the earring.
Got it. Yeah, that was weird. It was just weird. I was like, what's happening here right now? I don't know. I guess is that how they establish him as a heel? The fact he's mean to Tony Schiavone?
I think that's part of it, but I also think that's how they acknowledge that he's in a relationship with Britt, without making it a focal point or an actual storyline. I'm aware. I've been watching you, creepy mall Santa guy.
The only thing I really want to touch on, you're right. I think Tully Sting, if they do it, it'll draw. Whatever. It fits into the whole kind of grab bag. Anything can happen. AEW philosophy, whatever. But the Punk Team Taz stuff, I thought Taz. I liked this segment. I liked the exchange because it wasn't polished. Right? It felt like maybe they didn't tell Punk Taz was going to cut him off. Right? That it was all a work, but the way it came off, I just thought was really engaging. If you're a casual fan, you saw that, you might think something's up, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that you're right. It's going to be nice to see him get to work with these talents. I don't know if we're going to see a Punk Hook match, but Punk Hobbs for sure. And if that's the road to Punk Starks, maybe Starks is the guy to give Punk his first loss, and that's really compelling to me. Win over Darby, win over Hobbs, that makes sense. But maybe Ricky Starks is the one to pull up the upset and deal CM Punk his first loss, and that would not be a bad guy to do it with.
No, I don't think so at all. I think that the Ricky Starks upside here and the potential in the future for him, we talk about all these other stars that they are cultivating, the Orange Cassidys, the Darbys, the Jungle Boys, and Ricky Starks needs to be in that conversation. Ricky Starks is young. He's very talented, great in the ring, extremely charismatic in his own right. I think that, the downside for him is the obvious comparisons to The Rock. And I think that hopefully those will begin to dissipate in time. And if they don't, maybe he takes ownership of those, because we've seen people get compared to Ric Flair for generations. And as long as they're able to hold their own in terms of that comparison, it usually fades away a little bit. So Ricky's a great catch for them. And I'm looking forward to seeing them actually utilize him a bit more.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you for tuning in. Paul, thank you. What a wonderful conversation we had today. Thank you to AEW for giving us the time with Bryan Danielson there, for Tony Khan for sitting in on that. Again, the full video up over on our YouTube channel. We're about to jump into the mailbag, but Paul, we have a celebrity in the house, Zicky Dice, with a bunch of dancing emojis here. Zicky Dice. Oh, my goodness. International celebrity Zicky Dice in the house here right now. Thank you for joining us, Zicky here.
Dice, it's announced. Yes, Ricky, we know that you've pinned Ricky Starks we know that you guys did that whole thing in NWA for the NWA World Television title. I want to congratulate my man Zicky. Zicky and I go way back. Zicky was on my second ever pro wrestling show and recently signed to Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling is about to get outlandish on Thursday nights on Access TV. Zicky, put in a good word for me. My goal, I want to come to Impact Wrestling as a swingerella and ultimately manage the outlandish Zicky Dice.
I really want to see a Zicky Dice DDP vignette at some point. Like I'm honestly kind of surprised we haven't seen it yet, Paul.
Well, especially since Zicky Dice is becoming ripped using DDP yoga.
I know. I get
Zicky's like, dude, do it. You need to do it. You're going to feel amazing. And I'm like, I feel exhausted just thinking about it.
I get hardcore Dallas Page vibes off of Zicky Dice, and I mean that in a good way. Until Worst Gamer here saying, "Hey, Zicky," right? So anyway, Zicky Dice here saying, "Let me see what I can do." I'm guessing in regards to both of our requests. So
yeah,
you know,
Zick, let me maybe Nick will let me interview you for the site. We'd love to talk a little Zicky Dice.
Maybe a little Nikki Dice, right? I guess that's my name.
Or his girl, Chicky Dice.
So we're going to dive into the mailbag now. Zicky, please stick around. Everybody jump in, talk to Zicky, talk to us, whatever. We're going to pull some more comments up here before we close the show up today. But today's poll question stems from the release of the annual PWI 500. It came out yesterday and immediately started a discussion, as it always does. Here is this year's top 10 for the PWI 500. At number 1, Kenny Omega. Number 2, Roman Reigns. 3, Bobby Lashley. 4, Drew McIntyre. 5, Kota Ibushi. 6, Jon Moxley. 7, Will Ospreay. 8, Finn Balor. 9, Shingo Takagi. And number 10, Rich Swann. The poll question today at Wink Daily, WINC Daily over on Twitter. Give us a follow. We're on the road to 1,666 followers. We've tacked on about 50 in the last week, so go join the party. Let's all help to invoke Satan here on Halloween with our 1,066 followers. The poll question today, who do you think should have been number 1 on the PWI? I listed the top 3, Omega, Reigns, Lashley, and other. Over 500 votes here in the last hour, and it was close, Paul. 50.4% said Omega, 46% said Roman Reigns, 2% Bobby Lashley, and 1.6% someone else. Paul, are you happy with the top 10? Would you change it? Who do you think should have been number 1?
First and foremost, I'm going to tell you my love affair with Pro Wrestling Illustrated goes back decades. And this issue specifically was one that was always like, I clamored for it to arrive in the mail. So it's fun that you can actually just see it on Twitter now. But I think, in my opinion, I think in terms of the impact on what they've done with the last year, I think that, dominating in AAA, dominating in Impact, and dominating in AEW makes Kenny Omega number 1. I think that in terms of the other 3 who just follow really closely behind, I think they've all had probably the year of their career. Roman Reigns, absolutely incredible in terms of what he's done. Bobby Lashley, the best year of his career, hands down. And Drew McIntyre, hopefully, maybe we're just seeing the beginning for him. But I think that everybody else is pretty appropriately placed. There's only a couple people in that top 10 that shocked or surprised me.
And look, and I know this. The reason I did this, I should have just put Omega or Reigns. Like it does. Like those were the 2 everybody was debating about. And I know Kevin went on Twitter and said that there was a big discussion and debate internally, but ultimately Omega won out. If it had been Reigns any other year, it would have been him. I respectfully disagree. I think Reigns should have been number 1. All due respect for Kenny and the work he's done elsewhere. It did not get the mainstream attention. It did not make the money that Roman Reigns did. Like Roman Reigns went from being a backup player in the Shield, somebody pushed down people's throats that fans were burning out on, completely reinvented himself starting at the end of 2019 all the way through kind of early 2020, but then all the way through the year. I mean, he captivated the fans. He made SmackDown a watchable program, and Raw has yet to find somebody, all due respect to Bobby Lashley, who's really been able to reinvigorate that brand, and that may be not just due to the players, but creative as well. But Roman Reigns did something I don't think a lot of fans could have seen him doing. And when I walk around my neighborhood, I see Roman Reigns shirts. I see the Acknowledge Me shirt. I see the Head of the Table shirt. I don't see Kenny Omega shirts. I see him when I go to like Comic-Cons and stuff, but I don't think that there's even an argument here that Roman Reigns had the much bigger year. And when it's about the business of the business, Drew business. I don't think it's a contest.
I mean, I think that there's multiple ways to look at this, and I'm sure that this is the kind of debate that Kevin and his team at Pro Wrestling Illustrated had. It's like, what makes a person like the wrestler of the year? I think that Roman Reigns. We saw in my opinion, a fairly like repetitious year for him in terms of some of his opponents. I undoubtedly, if I had to vote like the most improved or the most like dramatically better competitor, Roman Reigns hands down, because he went from somebody I couldn't stand to somebody who's actually compelling. I think in terms of like the global perception of somebody who is representing what it means to be a true world champion, like that would be, Kenny Omega. Like Kenny Omega is going worldwide when allowed, based on like the health circumstances of the world at the moment. Like when he's allowed, he goes continent to continent and country to country and competes in different companies and wins different championships. So I think that there's an argument for both sides. I think that this is a coin toss, and I think that no matter which one of these people we'd put number one or number two, there would be a huge backlash from the other way. Like I said, this is a year where two individuals were clear cut, either one or two, and it just came down to, the number of voices that were chiming in during a private conversation at Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yeah, and a hearty discussion going on Twitter about it. Kevin has joined the conversation along with you. So if you want to engage over there, I liked and retweeted a bunch of stuff. We're kind of short on time here, so I don't have enough to read everything, but I'll read Daniel Price here. I don't like Roman, but he main evented with this title, whereas Omega's mid-carded more than once, and having him be the Impact champion was nothing more than a glorified AEW commercial. I tend to agree with that. And let's see here. Who was it? Where was it? Oh man, everybody just wrote a whole bunch of stuff real fast. It totally screwed up. All right, screwed up my rhythm. Nigel Uno 1. Roman wasn't number one because his in-ring work didn't match up to Kenny's. He works a main event style. Like, I just think it's different styles. It all goes back to money for me. Let's see here. Anything else I want to read? To Worse Gamer. He works for a bigger company with a bigger reach. By Nick's logic, they should have most of the top spots, and they do. I think the only two people in the top 10 are Kenny and John, right? Then you got like Rich Swann. You got
like, as much as I don't want to get any crazy heat here for saying this, but that was surprising to me. I did not agree with that.
There are 4 WWE talents, 2 AEW talents, 2 New Japan talents, 3 New Japan talents, and then 1 Impact talent. So,
I did not feel that Rich Swann, I mean, he had that kind of year for his career, but I don't think he had that kind of success.
I agree. That was weird. Very, very weird for me. So anyway, hey, it's the PWI 500. If nothing else, buy a copy, throw it on your table. Your friends can come over and you can continue this conversation until you're blue in the face. It's a fun one to have. It was a great show today. Congratulations again, Paul. Fantastic job at Big Game Brunch. Go check it out on fight.tv. Come back tomorrow. I'll have Christy Olsen on the show. We're going to play the audio from the AEW All Out Media Scrum with Tony Khan to close out the week. Also, if you like the Wrestling Inc. Daily, support WrestlingInc.com. We're on all the socials. Of course, the Wrestling Inc. podcast is live at night after the big shows. Paul, what do you want to put over here to wrap up the show today?
Well, upcoming in Pro Wrestling Illustrated is going to be the PWI Top 50 Tag Teams. They're going to be ranking that, which leads me into my push here for this weekend. I'm going into this weekend with 2 back-to-back shows, East Bay Pro Wrestling and Underground Wrestling Alliance, with my tag team, Money, Power, Respect, Fabuloso Fabricio, and Marco Mania. Shout out to you guys, as well as Dark Chic. We're going to be down in San Jose together. If you're in the Northern California area, come out and see us.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm at Nick_Hausman. I'm not doing anything this weekend. Don't find me. I'll talk to you on Monday. Please leave me alone. I will thank you very much for tuning in. I will talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.